And most of the hairs are healed at this point, but we still have a hair coming into the left-hand eye, her right eye, of course. And so I'll go ahead and zoom in on that detail. And I'll switch to the healing brush tool, which is my standard healing brush, and reduce the size of my cursor a little bit, and then I'll Alt-click or Option-click on the Mac on this hair detail down here, let's say, in order to lift it as the source. But then when I move my cursor over the portion of the image that I want to paint away, you can see that the angle of the hair inside my brush preview doesn't exactly match the angle of that hair that's coming downward. So if I start painting away like so, I'm going to get a very bad match. So I'll press Ctrl-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that change. Turns out there is a way to rotate that hair into place. Go up to the Window menu and choose Clone Source to bring up the Clone Source panel. And notice you have all these options for scaling the size of the source. You can also flip the source horizontally or flip it vertically. And flipping horizontally is particularly useful if you want to clone a detail from the left side of somebody's face onto the right side, for example, if one eye is closed more than the other. But the most common way to use this panel, in my experience, is to rotate the source. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this rotate icon in order to make the value active. And then I'll move my brush cursor over the hair so that I can see what I'm doing. And I'll start things off by pressing and holding Shift up arrow, which increases the values you can see here inside the panel. But that apparently is going the wrong direction. I've rotated my cursor clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So I'll press and hold Shift down arrow to rotate it the other direction. And at -15 degrees, I've gone too far. So I'll press Shift up arrow a few times. And it appears that a value of -7 degrees works out great. So once I have achieved a value that looks pretty good, I'll go ahead and paint over the hair as I did before and see if I get a better result. And sure enough, I do. I think my brush is too big, so I'm going to press Ctrl-Z or Command-Z on the Mac. In order to undo that brush stroke, reduce the size of my brush by pressing the left bracket key a couple of times. And then I'll click, and I'll shift-click my way into the upper left region of the eye. And then I'll Alt-click or Option-click again in order to load a different source point. And then I'll Alt-click or Option-click again and paint over this little defect. And then finally, I'll Option-click or Alt-click on the inside of that hair, and I'll paint my way in like so. And that looks pretty darn good. I think I'll Alt-click or Option-click and then drag down like that in order to get rid of that little bit of repeated detail, because I don't want to see repetition of detail inside the image if I can avoid it. Notice also we have this wrinkle that's going at the wrong angle. Alt-click or Option-click right about there in order to load a region of crease skin. And I'll increase the size of my cursor and paint like so and see if I get a better result. And I guess I kind of do, but I'm not sure that's really at the right angle. So I'll press Ctrl-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that brush stroke. It'll go back to the Clone Source panel, and I'll click on this little button that says Reset Transform. And then I'll go ahead and get rid of that rotational value so that I'm matching the angle of the creases, which is what I want. And I want to bring the crease in a little bit. So I'll turn on the Align checkbox and click right about there in order to fix that detail. And we've got another little spot right there that I'll get rid of as well. Let's see what we've done here. I'll go ahead and zoom out just a little bit so we can take in the eye at 100%. This is the hair from the original version of the image. And this is the hair removed thanks to our ability to rotate the source point from the Clone Source panel.